All right, so in Unit 6, we learned about multiplying with exponents, right? And then Unit 7, we started talking about what polynomials are. Hey, let's add them and subtract them, and then today we're going to multiply them. So I need to remind you of a few simple rules. The very first exponent rule I taught you was if I multiplied 8x times 3x, that you get what? It's not 24x. It is 24x to the second power, right? So you multiply the coefficients and you add the exponents, meaning there's one here, and that's why there's 2 there, right? So if I were to ask you to multiply negative 5a to the third times 7a to the fifth, that answer would be what? Negative 35. 3 plus 5 is 8, okay? And I know you're like, oh my gosh, just yesterday you told me to not do that, right? Because when we added, if, for example, I added 8x plus 3x, I asked you to make it 11x, not 11x squared, right? So we are jumping all around with this. But that's okay, because you have the rules straight in your head. If you're multiplying x times x, it's an x squared. If you're adding x plus x, it's 2x, okay? Here's another little set of rules you need to know. Can you add x plus y? No, because they're not like terms. Can you multiply x times y? Sure, it's xy, right? So this is just x plus y, but this is just go ahead and multiply them. So if I ask you to multiply 8xy to the third times 2x to the fifth y squared, could you do that? Sure. It's like 3 separate problems. The 8 and the 2, the x's, and the y's. So it would be 8 times 2, x to the first times x to the fifth, which is add them, x to the sixth, y to the 3 plus y to the 2, y to the fifth. Are you with me? This is nothing new. What's that? This is close to 7-2. You need to know how to do this to be able to do 7-2. We absolutely just did this, but I'm going to show you a little trick with it today, okay? So the name of the game today is multiplying polynomials. I just multiplied a monomial times another monomial, right? I taught you how to do that. What I didn't teach you yet, which I'm teaching you today, is how to multiply a monomial times a binomial or a trinomial or one with 7 terms.
Wait, what would one with 7 terms be called?
Just a polynomial. I mean, there's different, more than 4. So, first thing we have to talk about is this. This looks kind of familiar because I had you solving equations like that in whatever, remember you used to solve those equations. You just did what? What property did you use? You used the distributive property, right? You distributed the 5 times the x. You distributed and multiplied the 5 times the negative 7. And then you finished it. So you've already done this. You just haven't done it with exponents, right? So looking at this problem, do you think you're just going to distribute a 5a squared? Yeah. If you thought that, you're absolutely right. So I'm technically multiplying a monomial times a binomial. But in order to do that, I need to remember these rules, which is why I refreshed your memory a little bit. So what is 5a squared times 4a? It's what? 20. A to the, where did 3 come from? Because there's 1 here. Now I have to multiply the 5a squared times the 6a squared. Oh, this is like torture. Because yesterday I asked you to do 5a squared plus 6a squared, and it was 11a squared. Today it's what? 30a to the 4th. Oh my gosh, Mrs. Z, make up your mind. You want me to add them or not? Well, it depends on what I'm asking you to do with them, right? So, we're going back to doing that today. So, do you understand how to multiply a monomial times a binomial? If I added 7 more terms, what would you do? You would just keep distributing that 5a squared to everything, right? So I haven't taught you anything new yet. So now, here's what's coming up. Here's what's new. Oh, by the way, what if I did 4xy cubed times negative 6x squared y minus, let's distribute a negative. Let's do plus. 7y squared. So when I have both an x and a y, remember up here I said multiplication is not that strict. Can you multiply different variables? Absolutely. So then what would this give you?
24
X to the third, y to the fourth. Good. And then negative times a positive this time is negative 28. X, are there any x's over here to combine with this? Nope. So that I just put. And then y to the third times y to the second is not y to the sixth. You add. Okay. If you are with me on that, you are ready to multiply a binomial times a binomial. Are you ready? So in 7, you guys like options, right? Okay, it's kind of like if you go home and your parents say, hey, you want to do the dishes or do you want to vacuum? You got to pick one. You get to at least pick the lesser of the evils, right? So you're going to have 2 options. Options are always good of how you want to do 7-2. So option 1 we're going to call the double distribute. Something we know, we're already a little bit comfortable with it. Option 2 is going to be called the Buck's method. I'm going to show you the double distribute first because it's kind of goes well after what we were just doing here. Okay? So here's what the double distribute looks like. It says, don't just take a monomial and multiply it by a binomial. Take a binomial and multiply it by another binomial. Okay. So the first thing I need to point out right now as a good teacher is to show you that, man, these look really close to the problems we did yesterday. It's missing one thing. The plus or the minus in the middle. So all those problems I gave you yesterday that had pluses and minuses in the middle said, hey, take this binomial and add this binomial to it. Take this binomial and subtract it from this one. There's nothing in between that, which means don't add them, don't subtract them, multiply them. And it's a whole different set of rules. So everything we learned about adding and subtracting yesterday, we got to kind of apply something different. So why do you think they call it the double distribute? Because instead of just there being one thing to distribute, you have to distribute both. This means everything in this parentheses needs to get multiplied by a 4x, and then everything in this parentheses needs to get multiplied by a negative 7 also. There is a very organized way to do this, and there is a haphazard way to do it. The first thing I'm going to suggest is that you pretend like that negative 7 isn't there. Just cover it up. And then I'm just multiplying a monomial times a binomial. Distribute it. What is 4x times x? 4x squared, right? Stay with me. Keep that covered up. Now, what is the 4x times a 6? I just distributed a 4x to everything in here. If there were 10 more, I would keep going. But now I'm done. So it's kind of like that 4x is fizzled out. I don't need it anymore. So cover it up. And now what do I do next? Distribute the negative 7 to everything. Okay? It's actually easy. So negative 7 times x. Keep going on the same line. And now negative 7 times 6 is... Okay, now stop for a second. Okay? Because now I need you to look at what you have left and ask yourself, am I done? No. This is now a 7-1 problem, isn't it? So first I multiplied And then I have to look to see if there's any like terms I can combine. Do I see any other x squared terms around? No. So go ahead and just recopy it as part of your answer. Do I see any x terms to combine? Yes, 2 of them. So take a positive 24 and a negative 7, and you get what? Positive 17. Do I see any other constants to combine? So then that just comes straight down. And when I multiply this binomial times this binomial, I get that trinomial. I'll show you box method in a minute, but I want to just at least point something out. Okay? So 4x times or minus 7 and x plus 6 are both factors of this product, right? So remember when I said factor 12, make families or prime factorization, you said 1 times 12 is 12. 2 times 6 is 12. 3 times 4 is also 12. All of these are factors of 12, right? And 12 is called the product, right? It's the same thing except with numbers and letters and variables. This is our product. These are our factors. Have you seen that word factor before?
What word factor?
Oh, remember yesterday what I told you we're doing with Unit 7? We're adding, we're subtracting, and then we're factoring, we're factoring, we're factoring. Unit 7 is all about factoring. It's all going to be about later. I'm going to give you this, and I'm going to say, hey, what did I multiply to get that? That's factoring. It's going backwards, okay? Let's do another double distribute, and then we'll talk about the box method, all right? How about this one? A minus 6 times A minus 12. Yep. So you're distributing the A first. And these little arrows are not part of, like, you do not have to show those. It's just me kind of teaching you. A times A times negative 12 is negative 12A. The A's done. Cover it up. Now distribute the negative 6 times the A and the negative 6 times the negative 12. Negative 6 times A. Negative 6 times negative 12. Positive 72. What? Now it's a 7-1 problem. Add them. So my final answer is A squared minus 18A plus 72. Are you with me? Okay. What do you think is going to happen here? 5x minus 3 times a 5x plus 3. Man, they look pretty close. One's got a plus, one's got a minus. Otherwise, they're identical. Let's see what weird thing happens here. 5x times 5x. Hey, that's a square number, right? Now let's do the 5x times the 3, and I'm going to get what? A positive 15x. And what am I going to get next? A negative 15x. Negative 3 times 5x is negative 15x. And what number do I have on the end now? A negative 3 times a positive 3 is a negative 9. Do you recognize these numbers? 25, 9, 16, 81, 49, 36. Those are all numbers that you get when you square numbers, right? 7 times 7, 8 times 8, 9 times 9. There'll be more to that later. So what happens here? They cancel. So most of my answers are going to be my x squared term, then my x, then my constant. My a squared term, then my a, then my constant. This answer is just going to be 25x squared minus 9 with no x in the middle. I mean, a lot of people will be like, okay, so it's there. Like, here's my 25x squared. It's just 0. You'll never see an answer written like that, but for purposes later that might help you. That x term, that middle term has just disappeared because they canceled. Okay? Are you okay with the double distribute? Yeah. All right? If I asked you to do x minus 3 times 4x cubed minus 7x plus 1, that's a binomial times a trinomial. What would you do? Same thing. You would just distribute to all 3. Try that right now. Go for it.